I am always fascinated by the West. It's not so much the education that I was looking to. I'm looking forward to seeing something entirely new. And all my life, I lived in China, and I've never been outside of a very small, confined area. So it's only natural that I would fancy myself going somewhere else, far away. And I had my wish. I would say that the modern movement was very much ingrained in me because of the personalities that I associated with. I consider myself the second generation after Gropius, Breuer, and Alto. I thought I was very fortunate to be able to learn from these masters. But they turned out to be more than masters to me, turned out to be friends. When you think about urban renewal, you're not thinking about buildings. You're thinking about how to heal the wounds. So you have to be young and altruistic. And I was then.
I went to see Kips Bay recently, and I was shocked at how immaculate it was. The detailing was still perfect.
Just music to my ears. Kips Bay is very important to me because I had nothing to show at that time in New York. And at that time, Kips Bay was a very derelict area, very, very poor neighborhood. And so from the very beginning, we look upon Kips Bay not as a single piece of architecture, but as an organic whole to create a community.
Can you tell us about the Society Hill project in Philadelphia?
Well, Society Hill at that time was a dilapidated area. And that was a very good example of what urban redevelopment can do. I remember, and it really takes a combination of civic and professional leadership. And Society Hill luckily had it.
Can I move on to what I think is one of your greatest projects, which is the East Wing of the National Gallery of Art in Washington?
John Russell Pope, who did the original wing of the National Gallery, was really a standard for all of us to look at. It was neoclassic. The East Wing, I would say, it is a break from that tradition. And how do you make that break and not lose the connection was my challenge. I never wanted to be a revolutionary, and I like to evolve along those lines. I wanted somehow the two to join.
Did that influence the way you came to think about the Louvre, which was the next great challenge in terms of museums?
I think the East Wing is a new building. So therefore, I think that in the East Wing, I was free to create and make the connection really underground. But in the Louvre is something that I have to take into consideration long history before. So the challenge is very different. I think the making of the public space is a challenge of the Louvre. The Louvre before that is just a scattering objects on the Parisian scene. And I try to join them together to make it a whole. So in some ways, that public space, where the pyramid is really the challenge. And there was a challenge, and I think I did something there, which at least tells you what Louvre is today. High-rise is not my favorite architectural form. It's happened to be that if you build in the cities, you can't avoid it. So my first opportunity to do high-rise actually was housing. But then the opportunity came, I was able to do something for an institution. That was in Hong Kong. And a Bank of China building was an attempt to try to make high-rise more organic in a sense. And my engineer friend, Mr. Robertson, was so proud of it because he said the amount of steel I used in that building is the lightest he ever done for a building of comparable height.
I wanted to contrast that with a project that is a favorite of mine, the hyperboloid.
I never built that building.
I know.
That's for Grand Central Station.
Exactly.
The hyperboloid. Yes, I remember very well how Zeckendorf and I were work on that one together. So he arranged for Mr. Moses to listen to my spiel about the project on a train from uptown, from New York, rode all the way down to Grand Central, and say, we have about an hour and a half. He said, you have to sell Mr. Moses on the idea. I didn't succeed. That's one building I wish I had built. That's right, you're right. I would have liked to build that building.
I'd like to ask you about the JFK project. I know it was a long, drawn-out project.
It started with such a promise, just like his life. But then as time went on, it fizzled. Yes, it was built. How long? 14 years. And during those 14 years, the name Kennedy has gone up and came down. Can you imagine? Only 14 years. In the beginning, there were nickels and dimes from children. We filled the coffers within a matter of months. And toward the end, very few people even were interested in it. We went all over Eastern Seaboard to look for a site. And in the beginning, everybody wanted us. Toward the end, we were turned down. Harvard turned us down. Finally, we ended up in South Boston. It shows you something about memory. People's memory is very short.
I'd like to also pick up on the New York University residential towers. It has the famous Picasso.
Picasso, yeah.
Yes. Did you choose the Picasso?
Yes, I did.
Can you tell us about this relationship between art and architecture?
I remember I went to see him about it. I got his permission. That's all. And I went to south of France to do that. I had boxes, no details, and then showed him the environment in which the piece would be. And it was approved. He said, it's fine, just go ahead and do it. He was, at that time, he was quite south of France, you know, it was the end of his life, so therefore, you know, I know how he felt. He was very, he couldn't possibly be more involved anymore.
So can I ask, IMP, what next? At this time in your life, what next?
What next?
What next? Yes.
Rest. Rest. No, I have a chapel in Japan. I started my professional life with a chapel in China, and I think my last project is also a chapel, but this time in Japan. I started with chapel, I ended with chapel.
And I hope that's not the story, but I understand.
Oh, professionally, yes, it is. Yes. Because if I'm not doing anything now, nothing will be built in the next 5 years. No? You have to start now if you want to see something 5 years in. I stopped some time ago. So I can say that will be my last work. Yeah.
And that's a beautiful chapel.
I've done enough, I guess.